Hey, good afternoon everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to make homemade hand-cut noodles. If you've never had fresh noodles, you've really been missing something. And even if you had, maybe it was on a vacation a long time ago and far away, or it's just been a dream of yours. And even if you can get them locally, like I can, I find it's a little pricey for what you're getting. And believe it or not, like anything else, the stuff that you can make at home is generally as good, if not better, than the stuff you get in a restaurant. So, I decided to keep this very simple and very accessible, so everyone who wants to do this can give it a shot. There are very few ingredients in this. There's some all-purpose flour, one egg. The egg is to increase the protein content of the noodles and make them chewier. They got the baking soda. The baking soda is to increase the elasticity so they roll and stretch better, and salt because it's noodles, and of course some water, which you can't see yet. Now I'm going to use gloves today because I find that when I'm working with noodle dough it gets really sticky at the beginning, and it's a lot easier to squeeze it with your gloves and have it fall off than try to rub it and then you lose some in the sink and it's a big mess. One other thing you will need is a noodle stick. Now I don't recommend a regular rolling pin for this because it's just too thick. Now I do have a noodle stick, which I'm not going to use because most of you will not. However, what most of you may have is access to a hardware store where you can buy one of these, which is a hardwood dowel. This one is 3/4 of an inch wide. And if your counter is not as big as mine, or you don't want something, warlike to work with, what you could do is ask the nice people at the store to cut it, and usually for $1 or so they'll do it for you, and then you'll have 2 noodle sticks. Here's the actual proportion of ingredients. Now this will depend on your altitude, humidity, freshness of flour, size of eggs, whole bunch of stuff. So I'm just going to give the rough measurements now. Now I know a lot of people make these straight onto the countertop, even a wooden one. I find that kind of messy to clean up. I like to start off in a bowl. So, 1, 2, and I am just shaking this off. I'm not, getting the knife out. And the first half, this may even be enough, okay? I do like to keep a little bit extra if it sticks or for rolling it out for dusting. So the extra ½ cup I'm going to keep on the counter and then get rid of the big one. Don't worry, if you've got a messy counter, you're going to be rolling noodles and you'll have flour everywhere. If this is unsettling to people around you, maybe they should leave the house. Just sprinkle the baking soda and the salt. Mix that up briefly with your fingers. Sifting is not actually necessary for something like this. Then crack the egg into the measuring cup because you want 1 cup total. So I'm just going to take this to the sink and fill it up with some cool water, and then take all of that and just pour it in the middle. Break the egg yolk with your fingertips, and then using a circular motion, start pouring flour from the outside into the liquid. This is what I was talking about. It's very sticky at this point, and it's a lot nicer to just squeeze it and then push the wet stuff back in the dough. And because they're gloves, it comes off a lot easier than it would on your skin, and it's more hygienic. So at the beginning, just squeeze the dough, pushing it into the dried stuff. Pick up as much as you can before you're going to turn it out onto the counter. Okay, so get the bits there. just squeeze it, push it, turn it. And this is the very boring part that can take, depending on your strength, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. So I've been eating this for about 5 or 10 minutes. It's very smooth and elastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this in a bowl and cover it and put that in the fridge to rest for at least a half an hour, probably an hour, before I start rolling it out. What that does is it helps the noodles relax so they can roll out quite thin, and you do want to put it in the fridge in the meantime because it's got raw egg in it. It's been nearly an hour, and pull the dough out of the fridge. You can see the condensation on the plastic wrap. Yeah, it's nice and soft. So I'll take that out. Now, what you want to do is cut it in 4. And I sharpened my knife before because I'm going to be cutting the noodles with this, and you want your knife as sharp as you can possibly get it for this, so you can get very fine noodles. And you can see how nice that is. Now what's important is before you start, use your hands or the board or the counter or anything and get them nice and round before you start. And you may even want to plump them down into like these little loaf shapes or anything like that. You just pop those on the counter over there for what you're not using. And then I'm just going to cover them with the bowl like that. Actually, I can just kind of push them out of the way for a bit and get my noodle stick, my extra large noodle stick, and start. So roll it one way, then roll it the other. If it starts to be a bit damp, just get a pinch of flour and rub it. Or you can put it on the counter and rub it like that, however you want. The important part is not to add too much flour. Add what you need, but don't go crazy on this, because when you're boiling it, the noodles after, it's going to come back to haunt you because it's going to froth up. You see how nice and soft those are? Now, provided it's not sticking, feel it first. I'm going to put just a little pinch. So instead of just rolling it out like this first, what you're going to do is grab it either from this side. I personally find down here works better. Okay, and kind of pinch it up, and then pushing down and out, roll it up on the stick. Now for those of you that have made pie crust, this is not going to be any surprise at all. And then what you do is unroll that. And definitely this is getting really damp now, so you do want to put some flour, because the last thing you need to have this stick to your noodle stick and gum it all up. Now what you can do if you want, before doing another roll around the stick, is you can just press it down. Now, if these are not perfectly shaped, don't worry about it. You will not notice anything once this hits the water. Yeah, and you can see that's getting fairly thin. It's a little uneven. Not to worry. These are nearly getting see-through. I think I will do one more around the stick just to show you, and then I'll cut them You can hear in the back the water's starting to come to a boil, which is just about right timing. And there's the noodles like that. These are good enough. You can keep going, but unless you want to add more flour, they're good enough to cut right now. So what you do is just fold it up this way, pick it up, fold it back. 3 is enough. And zoom in a bit so you can see that well. Now what's important is that they not stick. Like, don't leave them like that, because those will stay together in the water. So you want to push down and move it away like that. If you want to be really fancy about it, you could always cut out the rough ends until you have just the nice ones, but you're going to lose a lot of noodles doing that way. And when it's in the pot, you'll never know. However, when you do get to the main body of the part that you're cutting, and I will show you this, you'll notice how stretchy these have become. And I'll pull out so you can see that better. We'll cut another 1 or 2. Now this is where, if you've got a helper that's watching you, waiting for dinner or something, you can always get them to help you stretch the noodles if you're so inclined. If you stretch them too far, they will break, but they are a little bit stretchy. So enough with the demo. If we want these done properly, I'm just going to have to cut them up quickly. You should stop every little bit and kind of stretch them out, because if you don't, they are going to stick in the water. See, this is a toss-up how you want to do it. You can either spend the time doing this, or what I'll do is I'll unfold this again, provided I can, and I still can, and I will sprinkle this generously with flour. So let's cut off a few more, and we'll see how that goes. And as you can see now, they're coming apart just nicely. So, personally, this is a real case for experimentation. There's always a happy medium in the middle somewhere. And if you cut them too thin, they'll fall apart. Now, some people like really thick noodles. If you do like those, you don't have as much work ahead of you. Now, I'm going to cut all these up later, but I am going to just show you this bit now, because I hear the water's boiling. I'm going to turn the pan on, and actually a little bit is a lot easier to see than a whole bunch. Plus also, if you put too many noodles in your water and you have too much flour on them and you don't have enough water, it will froth up and go all over the stove. I'm using a really big pot here so you can see how that will work. And what I'm going to do is just take the time while I've got it to pull these apart. You know what? I've got so many noodles. I think I'll just go with the floured ones. You could even roll those out and start again. As you can see, I have lots of water, and I've also left enough room from the top, I'd say probably around this much, to make sure that if it does froth up, it won't overboil. So let's just drop a couple in by hand. You can even see that dancing around just with one noodle. And the less you put in at once, the better they'll cook. These hardly take any time at all. So provided you have them all chopped up and ready to go, you can cook them batch by batch and either fry them directly, which I'm going to do immediately just to show you, or set them aside in a bowl and toss them with a bit of oil so they don't stick together until you're all done. And then you can either make a nice big chow mein or a couple of noodle dishes or whatever you like. Those are looking pretty good. Now, if you've ever seen these done at a Chinese restaurant, you'll remember that they always have the wok going next to the noodle pod. Now, I don't have a wok going. I have a non-stick frying pan, but it's just as good and you'll get the idea. So what you do is you take your batch of noodles, shake as much water out of them as you can, and then go to your hot pan that has some oil in it, and just toss those in. Of course, you can just eat these boiled if you want to. Frying is not necessary. I just find they taste better. And yes, there's lots more where this came from. I just did that one batch to give you an idea how to get going. I'm going to save the rest for later for my own dinner. And if you do want to just have plain noodles without any meat or vegetable, you just put a little bit of seasoning on it. I find a couple of drops of sesame oil and a little bit of dark soy works very well with this. If you've got some kind of chili sauce and you like hot food, by all means. Here's a closer look. If you have had these in a restaurant and they look just like this and you're going, why did I pay $18 for that plate of chow mein? Why indeed. So this is how you make homemade hand-cut noodles. Do go to the hardware store and get yourself a dowel and give this a try. You'll be very happy that you did if you like homemade noodles. Thank you for watching, and I do hope to see you again. Bye-bye.